Hello, FedPhoenix fam. So today I'm going to do a video on how to do your prison time. This is something that I get asked a lot by people that are getting ready to self-surrender, getting ready to get sentenced. This is something I sometimes get asked by people who are just curious about the federal injustice system and the prison experience, the federal prison experience. And, it's always a difficult question to answer, right? Because there is no one size fits all answer to this question. A lot of people will tell you people do their time differently. And that is a very real statement. But a lot of people starting into this journey, really have no idea how they will do their time. And they come to me and they say, how do I do the time? And I can't give you a definite answer. It's going to depend a lot on you. What I will say is some things that you should be doing before you do your time, if you have the opportunity. Certainly watch my videos on preparing for federal prison to do your prison time, preparing financially, socially, economically, talking to your kids. That's one thing that's going to make the time you have to do a lot smoother and your reentry smoother is proper preparation before your prison time. Now, a lot of people don't have that opportunity. And you can't and if you do have that opportunity, a lot of people lose that opportunity because they get so caught up in the emotional roller coaster of this that they don't have the presence of mind to do what they can to prepare. Don't let that be you. The emotional roller coaster is a ride that you're going to be on before prison, during prison, and well after your prison stay. Do not let that consume you to the point that it handicaps you from putting yourself in the best position possible to not only do your time, but to re-enter back into society after you do your time. So, some people, just like in county jail, they try to sleep away their time, right? And I always envied people who could do this. Because if I sleep too much, I get migraines and my restless leg starts going crazy and it's just not conducive for me. But I do know that there are a lot of people who have the ability to kind of force themselves to sleep for 10, 12 plus hours at a time. If you have that ability and when it's feasible, certainly take it. And a lot of people will say, well, that's depressing, just sleeping as much as you can. No, honey, sleep is like a time machine. If you have a 10, 12-hour window where you can sleep without creating problems for yourself, and you physically can make your body do this, comply with this, freaking do it. Because now that 10, 12-hour window, because sleep is a time machine, really feels like 5 minutes. You can kind of cheat the time system in that way. If you have the ability to do it, by all means, I fully encourage and support you. Another thing that that you can do to help do your time is keep yourself distracted and or busy. Now, don't get this confused with, I'm not saying overschedule and make your day-to-day so systematic that it lacks choice. And watch my video on post-incarceration syndrome if you would like to understand more on why I say don't do that. But what I am saying is, do adult coloring books, actual books you read. I think self-improvement is a great way to pass the time. It's very smart because it keeps you distracted, but then you're also walking away from this experience with some type of benefit, some type of long-term gain. If you want to get in shape, if you want to lose some weight, if you want to tone up, if you're a person that needs to gain some weight. And again, self-help books would definitely be on my top 5 things to do to pass time. They can be very engulfing. If you're going to do that, be very honest with yourself, be very introspective, and really get the most out of it. You don't buy a cupcake and just eat the icing and chuck the rest over your shoulder because, you're losing part of the good that there is from the experience. So don't just take the best of it, which is just something to scan and skim and you're going to pass a lot less time if you don't actually do the work involved in self-help, right? If your facility has various support groups or therapy services, which therapy services are going to be all but non-existent, and support groups are going to be extremely minimal. But if there are any, if you can in any way benefit from them, attend them, right? What's it going to hurt? I would say be cautious to not overshare, because when you overshare, when you make yourself a person of interest to the other inmates, you also become a target of gossip, of speculation, of just all kinds of unnecessary headaches and hassle that you do not need or want, I assure you. A lot of people in Outer Sin took up crocheting when they were incarcerated. This was the way they could make extra money, by selling crocheted goods to other inmates. And this was a great way to pass time. So it was a doubly beneficial thing. I don't think the people that did like laundry as a hustle considered it an enjoyable pastime rather than just a hustle. But there are certainly things you can do that you can enjoy and also create some financial gain for yourself in the process. You could start studying law. I mean, clearly you're in this position. You should have picked up a little something. But the more you educate yourself on admin remedy processes, habeas corpuses, ex partes, that kind of thing, and the more you become familiar with various case study, the more capable you are. If someone says, oh man, I really need to do this sensitive 10, I don't know how to word it. I really need to do the sensitive 10. I wonder if there's any like a BOP policy or any legal anything that I can quote to make it, more valid, carry more weight. If you're the person who potentially has these answers or doesn't mind finding them, that can become a lucrative pastime for you. So one of the things that really, I think, makes people's time very difficult, right, are the people who get caught up in the fishbowl. You do not want to have a significant other who's also an inmate. You do not want to build a pseudo family, as many women do in prison, as an inmate. You do not want to try to establish any type of trauma bond or significant emotional connection with other people in the facility, particularly if you're going to be there for 10 years or less. Because the reality is, you will find yourself getting pulled into and caught up into the quicksand of prison, the fishbowl. When the warden took us hostage, I have a video on that too. And there was days, lights on 24/7, a lot of unnecessary harassment, including strip searches as an intimidation tactic, and bagged meals 3 times a day. And a lot of people were losing their minds. They were just, because they're like, oh my gosh. And I guarantee for those people, that time went very slowly. That like 5-day whatever situation, as far as the immediate situation, because it extended well beyond that with commissary restrictions and whatnot. But I definitely think for those people that let themselves get caught up in it, those 5 days probably felt like a month. I just kept telling myself, this is temporary, it's a slice of my life. And at the end of the day, 3 bagged meals is still 3 meals. And I got food in my locker. Yeah, we can't shower. But, I mean, I've been dirtier at some point in my life. And at the end of the day, this too shall pass, slice of my life. And I'll eventually be able to shower. And it isn't like the people around me are able to shower either. So we're all just a bunch of stinky stinkers up in here. So, it is what it is. And no matter how wonderful or how miserable the conditions on any given day are, that's still a day, chipped off the block of me getting the heck up out of here. So, and you have to really kind of have that indifferent, roll with the punches attitude. Your mind state is largely going to determine how difficult or how easy it is for you to do your time. One thing that was really hard for me too, and I see a lot of people struggle with this, was, right before I went to prison, we found out my mother had renal cell carcinoma. She lost half a kidney and couldn't go back for any follow-up care because I wasn't in the free world to help her make that happen, to transport her, to make appointments, to keep things organized. And so the whole time I was in prison, it was a constant concern, is my mother's cancer even gone? Will she be alive when I come home from prison? And that was really hard. There were things, just random trivial things, in regards to my youngest child, my juvenile child, my son, where people would say, oh, he did this and so this happened, or, oh, we're doing this. And it would be things that I didn't generally agree with, or parenting techniques, for lack of a better term, that I was opposed to, or I didn't agree with, or whatever. And the thing is, at that point, you have to really humble yourself. And whether it goes to the care of your children, the care of your pets, the care of an elderly relative, your spouse, whatever. If there is care being provided and they are not intentionally being harmed or neglected, Even if the care is not what the quality or the methods or the whatever that you prefer, you got to just shut up and be grateful that there is care being provided. Because you'll find that there are lots of people around you that have children, that have significant others, elderly relatives, pets, whatever, that aren't receiving any care or are being grossly abused or neglected in their absence, and their hands are completely tied. So, you may not agree with, my husband or my mother let my kids stay up till 11 o'clock at night this night, or let them eat all the pumpkin pie they wanted to, until they were sick. You're not going to agree with those things, and they're going to annoy you, and you're going to feel a need to say, well, wait, no, don't do that. And you're the inmate. You're not in a position to make demands. You're not in a position to do anything, but be grateful and pray to God things go as well as they can until you can get home. And when you get home, you hit the ground running, getting things how you want them to be. But I've seen a lot of people, and I ain't gonna pretend that I didn't have a lot of stress worrying about, is my mother still cancerous? Is the cancer back? Is she gonna be alive when I come home? How's my oldest child gonna fare? And when things would arise or situations would arise where I knew that if I was in the free world, I could be proactive or helpful, and my hands were tied, I couldn't do that. It was incredibly frustrating and defeating to me. And it was very hard to not slip into a very dark place mentally in the midst of all that. My youngest child, there were some circumstances where I was concerned that the other parent would be such an issue that my child would be caused great harm. And I'll leave it at that. And that was terrifying. Because as a mother, my primary responsibility to my children, right, is to protect them. And when you're an inmate, you can't protect them more often than not. You really have to just, you're a passive viewer in the day-to-day life. And you got to really focus on the positive. Because again, your mind state is going to get you through. A lot of people, when they're incarcerated, they become very religious. Some people become incarcerated and they become anti-religion. They're angry, they're frustrated. But a lot of people at some point in their incarceration do become particularly religious. And I don't think this is a bad thing. A lot of times people will throw dirt on the concept of prison religion, Now, if you're using religion specifically to be manipulative, it's not my thing. It's not really something I respect or encourage. But how you cope is how you cope. And if you're not directly hurting anyone, it's not my business. But I think a lot of people, with the prison religion, right? A lot of people, they kind of get neck deep in their religious beliefs or philosophies or the religious journey or seekings while incarcerated. And then when they come home, that fades away pretty quick. And people go, oh, well, that was prison religion, Yes and no. Yes, this is, whether you're a person who's incarcerated, whether you're a person who is an active duty military officer in a war zone, whether you're a kidnapping victim, whether you're a woman who's getting her head kicked in every day for 20 years, no matter what your circumstance, when you're in a high stress situation, your brain wants to survive. It wants to preserve your sanity. And sometimes when you look around, you can't find anything positive to cling on to. And so when the eyes cannot see something to cling on to, often the heart, the mind, the soul, whatever does. And frequently that is religion. And I think most people that have prison religion are very sincere in the moment with it. These are very desperate people. These are very overwhelmed people. Many people have mental illnesses that not only are not being properly cared for, but being exasperated by their condition and their circumstances. And they are trying to just hang on to whatever strand or thread of hope or promise or anything positive to keep themselves, off the edge, metaphorically. And then when they come home, they can find positive, they can find productive, they can find things to be hopeful about. And usually that's the point where the prison religion, so to speak, kind of fades off into the background. And then a lot of people go, oh, well, they were just like that when they were incarcerated. It was an act. It wasn't sincere. I think more often than not, it's very sincere. It's just no longer applicable because it was sincere due to the circumstances, and the circumstances have changed. So therefore, their perception has changed and their needs have changed as well. And I don't think any part of that is a bad thing. I think anything that brings you peace and hope, especially in a very difficult time, and you clinging on to that, again, if you're not harming other people, I see no issue with it. In fact, I encourage you. So, now, again, you don't want to get caught up in the fishbowl. You don't want to get caught up in the madness. You don't want to... A lot of people go into prison with a fairly good mind state, and they get so caught up in the day-to-day going-ons. Oh my gosh, our unit's on lockdown. I did nothing. I can't call my kids. How are they going to know I'm okay? There's a lot of my videos to help you get through these things when they arise, because inevitably they're going to arise, right? Make sure you always have envelopes and stamps and envelopes and writing paper. Because even though very few people, or not a lot of people, still use traditional mail, even during a lockdown, even in the shoe, you can use it. So if you wanted to send a smoke signal to let your family know you're okay, or if you want them to be able to send a smoke signal to tell you that your grandmother made it through her hip surgery, the postal service is going to be your golden ticket for that. And a lot of people overlook that. And when these things happen, these mass lockdowns, or they end up in solitary or whatever, then they're like, they're kind of back to the wall. And what do I do? What do I do? I can't contact my people. I don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on. Protect yourself. Keep a book of stamps. Keep a box of envelopes. Keep at least one notebook and a couple writing implements. Very, very basic, minimal things. And they don't cost you a whole lot of money. And the peace of mind that they can ensure you in certain situations will be priceless. A lot of people, you see them go in and they get fit. They get in great shape physically. Or some people go in and they really just kind of do the work and the introspect to kind of work through some of their own crap, their own baggage, right? But one thing that you need to keep in mind also while doing your time is, when I went into prison, I just knew, right? I knew that I was going to come out in the best shape of my life. I was going to read X number of books. I was going to have a manuscript for my own book put together. I was going to do all these things. And when these things did not happen, or it was clear they weren't happening for me, or I wasn't making them happen for myself, I should say, I felt really defeated. I felt really hopeless. And I found myself slipping into like a depressed, woe is me kind of state, right? But what I quickly learned to do, and what I did often throughout my incarceration, was I would tell myself, setting goals is good, right? It's good to set goals. It gives you something to focus on. Usually this is something positive. Wonderful. But when and if you do not hit these goals, you don't beat yourself up about it. You set new goals, and they can be completely unrelated to the first ones. Because here's the thing. If you made a goal to read 100 books and you stopped at 23, you read 23 books, pat yourself on the back for what you did achieve, and just let it go and move on. Don't dwell on it. Let it go. Move on. Because the whole purpose of the goal was to get something productive. You obviously did. 23 books worth. And the purpose of the goal was to help pass your time. So it served its purpose. It's no longer helping you pass your time. Push it aside. Make a different goal. Can be completely unrelated. Move forward. Another thing I think that is really beneficial to do when you're incarcerated, and I did not do this, but I've seen other people do it, and it seems to do them a world of good while they're incarcerated and when they come home, is if you have a cousin or a friend or maybe an adult child, maybe a parent who you're estranged from, right? And the situation is fixable and it's worth fixing, right? There's something positive to come out of fixing the situation and moving forward. Maybe you were the problem. Or maybe you were both the problem, both parties, and one of you just has to be the bigger person to take the first step and say, these are my wrongs, I own them, I'm ready to move forward. Knowing that you may not get the same apologement or encouragement or acknowledgement from the other party, but whatever the issue was that caused the separation, the estrangement, isn't worth maintaining the separation or estrangement. Or maybe you just have people that you really need to part of your growing within yourself is getting things off your chest, right? And maybe you have a parent or an ex-spouse or a current spouse or whatever, that there are just some things you need to say to. And you know that they may not care about them. They may not value them. Heck, they may, if you write them a letter, they may read the first sentence and throw it in the trash. but you, for your own benefit, need that closure. Do these things while you're incarcerated. So when you come home, you have less baggage, you have less unresolved crap, because we all have unresolved crap. You have less of it. And so as you rebuild your life and you re-enter society, you can do so with a clearer conscience, right? And knowing that you did what you could to remedy things that were problematic. And that's all you can do. That's all you can control is yourself. And accept that and come to terms with that and move on. So one thing I see a lot that's very disheartening for me, and I try to prepare people for a lot as far as doing their time, is I have one particular client. He's doing some time. I forget exactly how much. It's less than a couple years. Nonviolent, victimless crime, first-time offender. And I warned him, these are the things to expect when you go to prison. You expect medical negligence. You expect gross unfairness. You expect the occasional subhuman conditions. But I don't think he really comprehended that is very much the reality. I think he thought that perhaps because he talked to some other people and they were like, oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be fine. It's a summer camp for adults. Well, it wasn't. Once he got there, he realized that I had in fact been telling him the reality and everyone else had been sugarcoating things for him. And, he was very upset. He was not getting his basic, and still probably isn't getting his basic necessary medication, like blood pressure meds and stuff. And I told him, these are the steps you can take to try to remedy this. You, people on the outside on your behalf, yada, yada. Ultimately, expect nothing. I mean, dig in, fight like hell, make the effort. But if it doesn't go the way that it should go, be ready to accept that and keep moving. And the whole idea is to get out alive. Will you get out with new cardiac issues? Will you get out, with potentially some kind of mobility issue that you didn't have? It's quite possible. But as long as you get out alive, you can bounce back, you can rebuild. And that's what matters. So anything that is not immediately life-threatening, you don't stress it. And even those things, you stress as little as possible. So I mentioned this guy to say, today I got an email from him. Him and his wife, they live in a very isolated part of the country. In a very isolated area, right? They have family, they have neighbors, but not people they regularly interact with. They're kind of loners. And his wife has developed some health issues and some complications with pre-existing issues during his incarceration. And today I got an email from him that I could tell by the email he sent it to a lot of people, saying, hey, my wife is stable at the moment, but she's still in ICU. She's on breathing machines. I don't think she's going to live. Please help us. Contact whoever you can, And what he's wanting is compassionate release, of course, which we all know is a unicorn. Or for there to be approval from his judge, from Grand Prairie, for the judge to change the sentencing order for him to finish his time on home confinement, change his sentencing order to less time so he can go home. For Grand Prairie to designate him to finish his time on home confinement. He's not asking for a pardon. He's not asking to not have to pay back his financial restitution. He's not asking to have his gun rights back, even though he lives in a part of the country where, due to wildlife, not having gun rights is quite frankly terrifying. He's not asking for any of those things. He's saying, let me go home. I don't give a crap if I'm on house arrest, but let me go home to be with my wife and help her recover. And in the event that she does not recover, so that I can say goodbye and mourn. And this is someone who's not a threat to their community. They're not a threat to anyone. They have been convicted of a white-collar federal crime. This is not a career criminal. This is someone who got a little greedy and a little reckless financially. And is now serving prison time as a result and has served several months up to current. So has fully received the mother load of the crap that one endures in prison, as far as the medical negligence, the high stress, the gross indifference from staff and guards. you know, all the things, the horrible things in prison that deter you from making decisions in the future that will put you back in prison. He's already got a good helping of those. And there's no public safety issue. There's no logical reason to keep him in prison, in my opinion, other than the fact that, you know, he has not finished his sentence. And I don't think, being that he's already received all the deterrent aspects of the prison experience, there's any benefit in keeping him in prison. Quite frankly, let him finish his time on home confinement. I'm not saying give him a pardon. I'm not saying give him a free pass to do what he wants. I'm saying, as human beings, let's treat this man as a human being, right? Because he's seen himself and the people around him as humans before he went to prison. Now he's probably struggling a bit with that. But let's treat him with a reasonable amount of dignity and compassion, so that when all this is said and done, this whole crap show he's gotten himself into, he can be as minimally mentally harmed, long-term or permanently, by it as possible. Give his wife, who did nothing, the ability to be with her husband during her darkest times, possibly her last days. You know, and then this would remedy the fact that he's not getting reasonable, basic maintenance medical care, because he can get that for himself. He's in the free world, even on house arrest. And then they say, oh, the overpopulation in the prisons, and oh, it's so expensive. Yeah, it's so expensive. And guess what? Our society and our justice systems are a freaking funnel, sucking people in and keeping there as long as they can, and then traumatizing and abusing and neglecting them to exasperate mental illness or create mental illness, to nearly guarantee, to strain family ties, that they're going to find themselves right back. You know, because the prison industrial complex is a for-profit business in this country. It's one of our three branches of government, the three puppet masters of this country, behind the man behind the curtain. Big pharma, prison industry, war machine. That's it. That's where the money goes. That's where it matters. And everything down to the groceries we buy are designed to keep money dumping into these three. And this person currently, like many of us have been at some point, many will be, is simply collateral damage in one of these three aspects. Because if you want to say, well, he still has to finish his time, he got his time. Sentencing a person to 2 years in prison while they are severely medically neglected and a spouse is likely dying is not a fair punishment. Not to mention 2 years in prison is the time relativity, the experience of like 10 years in the free world, at least 5, but 10 for many. You know, if you have more difficult circumstances, lack of family support, family crises, health issues, mental or physical, then 2 years is going to feel like a 10-year sentence while you're doing it. If you don't have any of these things, you have great family support and you're healthy, and then that 2 is going to feel like 5. So the people who do this sentencing and who make guidelines where guidelines are applicable for sentencing are people that have never been to prison and are definitely have a very unrealistic idea about what prison actually is for the people that are detained in it. And it's not okay. It's not. And if you're the praying type, I think we should say a prayer for Brian and his wife. I'm not going to give any more identifying information. Brian, when you come home, if you see this, buddy, there's really nothing we can do. A legal dream team maybe can help you, but you don't got that and we don't got it. And I'm sorry. This is part of the course. It sucks. It's unfair. It's unfortunate. Maybe one day it'll be different for somebody else. So, y'all know I get a little emotional. But anyway, this video is on doing your time. If you have any questions about how to do your time physically, mentally, anything like that, again, I have lots of videos on preparing for prison, preparing your loved ones for your prison stay, preparing socially and financially. I strongly advise, if you foresee yourself going to federal prison, or if you are on your way, to please watch those and educate yourself. Also watch the videos on FSA and RDAP, and these are all things that you need to be aware of when you get there, so that you can as fluidly as possible do your time and get the heck out. So with that, my Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo will be in the description of the video if you would like to donate to the channel or my reentry, you know, however you want to look at it. We are up to a little over 400 subscribers. Please subscribe if you have not already. It costs you absolutely nothing. Once I get to 1,000, I potentially become monetized, and God knows I need the help. And it, again, costs you nothing, and it's something that is a big deal in my world and could help me a lot. There will be a link to the merch line if you'd like to buy some FedPhoenix gear, support the cause, you know, helping folks prepare for prison, navigate the federal injustice system, you know, just, you know, supporting the fact that inmates are human beings. And, you know, I really think if there ever came a day where the persons in power actually saw them as such and required those who handle them to see them as such, the difference would be day and night and what people endure unnecessarily in prison. And the experience could actually be one that benefits individuals and societies, and not just those who continue to build wealth on the backs of, you know, our high incarceration rate. So, and my email will be in the description as well if you'd like to contact me for any reason. You know, I'm happy to be as helpful as I can. And I guess that's about it. I'm going to wrap this up right about half an hour. So, good day. God bless. And I will holler at y'all later.